Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Department of Energy's Presidential Early Career Awards for Scientists and Engineers. Thank you all for being a part of this exciting occasion as we honor our awardees. I'm Elizabeth O'Malley, the Senior International Advisor for the Office of Science, and I'm pleased to be serving as Mistress of Ceremonies. At this time, we'd like you to focus your attention to the screen for a welcome video, which celebrates the achievements of our PECASE awardees.
Inspiration, achievement, promise. That's what we're celebrating today. The 13 Department of Energy winners of the Presidential Early Career Awards for Scientists and Engineers were chosen from among their peers as the best in achievement, the brightest in promise. As PECASE winners, they have earned the highest honor our government can bestow on early career scientists and engineers. We've gathered to recognize their inspiration, their achievement. It's fitting that we do so. But what we cannot truly do is recognize the potential, the promise that these individuals will live to fulfill. These winners are our best achievers, our future leaders. In the days and decades to follow, they will keep our nation at the leading edge of science and technology, innovation and discovery. So let's applaud them today for their achievements and for the hope and promise they represent.
Join us as we welcome them, this year's winners of the Department of Energy's Presidential Early Career Awards for Scientists and Engineers.
Okay, I'd like to now invite Dr. Bill Brinkman, Director of the Office of Science, to the podium for brief welcoming remarks. Dr. Brinkman has been leading the Office of Science for just over 3 years. He brought decades of experience in managing scientific research in government, academia, and private sector to the post. He's made a profound impact in the Office of Science, leading the opening of new frontiers in energy research and the development of new energy applications. Dr. Brinkman, would you please join us?
Well, thank you, Liz, and good afternoon to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here and to be part of the celebration of the winners of the Presidential Early Career Awards for Scientists and Engineers. And I want to congratulate all of you. And I think you've seen the pictures, so you know, you start recognizing this group as a special group, and indeed they are. I also want to thank all the folks who are here, who have come to celebrate this award, and I appreciate the fact that much of the management is here, and especially Deputy Secretary Poneman. I express my gratitude to him for taking part in this award ceremony. The winners this year are a little different than in the past years, and in past years we used to essentially the Office of Science and NSA nominated people for this award. This year we've included the energy world and have a nice set of awardees from the energy, and these people are chosen, and they're still early in their research careers, and they all show exceptional promise at the frontiers not only of science but of technology, and that's very important. And so now I'd just like to go on and introduce the Deputy Secretary Poneman. Secretary Poneman was confirmed about a month before I was, in May 18th in 2009, so he's been here a little over 3 years. He knows the department very well because he first came here in 1989 as a White House fellow, and so he's been looking at this department for a long time. After that, he joined the National Security Council staff as the Director of Defense Policy and Arms Control from 93 to 96. Mr. Poneman served as a special assistant to the president and senior director for non-proliferation export controls at the National Security Council. After leaving the White House, Mr. Poneman served as member of the Commission to assess the organization of federal government to combat the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and a number of other federal advisory panels. He has also had a career in the private sector. He has served as a principal at the Scowcroft Group for 8 years, providing strategic advice to corporations on a wide variety of international projects and transactions. He has also practiced law for 9 years in Washington, D.C. The first was as an associate at Covington and Burling, and later as a partner at Hogan and Hartson. So it's a great pleasure for me today to introduce Deputy Secretary Poneman. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Liz. You know, in security terms, you'd say Liz has my six, because I know she's watching my back there. Bill was nice enough to read too much of my bio. I was a member of this commission, which you heard him struggle with, commission to study the organization of the federal government to combat the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, which I thought was the biggest mouthful possible until I read the subjects of your expertise. Because at least I know all the words in the title, you know. This is actually the best part of my day, because you all embody all of our hopes and dreams and aspirations for where we can take this nation. And, you know, Aristotle said goodness is its own reward. What's clear to me already, just from having read your short bios, is the work that you do, it's obviously driven by great brilliance, even to understand the topics, much less to master them. But it's also equally obviously driven by passion and drive and energy and persistence and patience. And my hunch is when you all started out on this journey, probably not a one of you, 13, said, you know, I think there's a PECASE award in this for me, right? When you're at 3 a.m. looking at those lab results or whatever. But we say at the department, and it's not a bromide, that we will treat our people as our greatest asset. There's not a thing that we do at the department that really matters that is not deeply informed by science and by pushing the envelope. And it is no coincidence that this is the highest award that this nation bestows on scientists and engineers. And I know you just stumbled into town for a day and walked in and met the President of the United States. Wouldn't normally happen that way. Might not happen next time. But it shows you that not only does the department, does the secretary, does Dr. Brinkman honor your work, but the president does. And having had the opportunity to see him and to hear him talk and get a sense of how he thinks, you know that he deeply understands that for this nation to go where he's trying to lead it, to out-educate, out-innovate, out-build our competition, he knows that we need what you bring. And one of the things that I love about this department is that in an all-of-the-above energy strategy, we are an all-of-the-above agency. And the expertise that you all have brought to the table speak to all elements of our mission. Because I did have a chance to review and try to understand your topics. And of course, our agency was born, and this is something that is not universally understood. In fact, I have on reliable authority, there are people who accepted the position of Secretary of Energy who did not know that the original name of the Department of Energy was the Manhattan Project. They said, you mean they don't just do energy? And so I've seen expertise, and I've had the opportunity on more than one occasion to visit NIF. And I know one of you is doing work there. And the NIF is like the microcosm of the all of the above in and of itself. Because in bringing those 192 lasers to bear on that little capsule, you are not only creating the conditions that exist in the sun and help us understand the fundamental nature of matter, but you're also helping us get through the preservation of a safe and secure deterrent without nuclear weapons testing. And oh, by the way, you know, with your good work, it's always 30 years from now, whatever now happens to be, we may get some clean, cheap energy with only water as a waste product. And I think Ed Moses told me last time I was out there, you might even learn that Saturn is of a different age than the rest of the universe, or something like that. So the work that you do helps us understand the fundamental nature of the universe and our world. And when you ask what is the human condition all about, there is some unquenchable thirst for that level of understanding. That's why I saw somebody had been involved in working on the experimentation for the Large Hadron Collider. And I had the opportunity with Dr. Brinkman before the Tevatron was closed to talk to some of your colleagues out there and to just feel, because we sat around, remember we had a lunch with them, the excitement of getting the opportunity to work in those areas. And then we certainly do continue to live in a dangerous world. And we are moving away from a system in which redundant hardware is how we assure the safety and security of our deterrent. And we're moving, in fact, it is becoming a bit of a distant memory with the number of people who had hands-on testing experience diminishing year by year. And as one of the former lab directors put it to me, stockpile stewardship is not just the program of a record, but it's the program of intent. And that, of course, is based on science. And then this vast transformation that we're trying to create in energy, taking what is normally a 100-year trajectory, moving from wood to coal, from coal to oil, and so on, and compress it into a few short decades, understanding that we might be flirting with the ragged edge of potentially catastrophic climate change. So the clock is ticking. And you all know that the amount of carbon baked into the atmosphere will continue to determine that outcome, even if you stopped on a dime today. And so there's urgency as well as importance. And if you could have been with me this morning when I joined Secretary Chu at the National Petroleum Council, where they're announcing the release of their new Future of Transportation fuel study, it's going to be all about technology there. Because at the end of the day, the energy transformation will be determined not by who's got the biggest subsidy, because this will create, has created, unsustainable business models in which you end up subsidizing inefficient technology until the taxpayer just can't take it anymore. I'm not just talking about in the United States. So the smart thing to do, and the long-term sustainable thing to do, is to bring the cost down through technology, higher density batteries for our vehicular fleet. Can we get better sorbents to pack more gas molecules into CNG tanks? Can we get lighter, more tensile materials? Can we drive solar PV costs down so we can achieve the Secretary's vision in the sunshot, quite consciously mirrored on the moonshot, and get that down to grid parity within a decade so it can compete against ground-based forms of power generation, or indeed move off-grid entirely and move to distributed models? So these are not questions that are going to get answered, with all due respect, at many of the think tanks where recovering lawyers like me might one day find a job. You are going to be at the cutting edge of our efforts to find out the answers to those questions, and then to convert those answers into manufacturing, which will bring not only cleaner energy, but jobs and prosperity to the American people. So I don't want to make you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, because you have a lot of company, but we're counting on you. So this is actually a great day for me, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the outstanding work that you have done, because I know it's a harbinger of the even greater work that you will do. Just one last thing. This is what happens. I get these things, I never look at these. But it's relating again to something the Secretary said just this morning. Some of us are getting to the age where you can think back, oh, I did such and such 40 years ago. That's a kind of odd thing to be able to say. I'm not, well, yeah, I can actually do that. Actually, that's depressing. I was already driving a car. But just think of a couple vignettes. Anybody here seen the movie Meet Me in St. Louis? Judy Garland, all those guys? 1, 2. Okay, yeah, a few. 5, okay. Do you remember how quaint all that stuff seemed? That was 1939. Okay, so that was like 35 years before, when they had all these kind of sort of campy, you know, the telephone, hello, and the carriage, right, and the Stanley steamers. So how about this one? December 1903, Kitty Hawk. July 1969, the Sea of Tranquility. My grandfather was born before Kitty Hawk and lived decades past A Man on the Moon. And this last one, which is one of my all-time favorites. I need to Google this so I get the exact facts right, but it's on the order of 1899, when a small co-owner of a bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio, wrote, I think, to the Librarian of Congress and said, "Sir, my brother and I are working in an area we're interested in understanding more about the possibility of powered flight. Could you refer me to any publication? I'll gladly remit the cost. Sincerely, Wilbur Wright." So that's not just talking about the element of time. That's talking about one person making a pivotal difference to humanity. That's the power you have with your intellect and your creativity. So on behalf of, I know because he was speaking to you yesterday, the President and the Secretary, Dr. Brinkman, and your colleagues from the department, congratulations on this stellar award, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the proceedings and learning more about the great work that you're all engaged in. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. As Dr. Brinkman said, our PECASE winners come from several different offices within the Department of Energy. So we're going to spend a few minutes hearing from representatives of each of these programs, and then we'll go into the presentation of the awards. Unfortunately, Thomas D'Agostino, Undersecretary of the National Nuclear Security Administration, could not make it today, so we have our Deputy Secretary, who's very well-versed in this area, to speak for him. I will ask that once each speaker speaks, if you could please have a seat in one of those chairs there, and we'll just kind of keep going from there, and then we'll go on to the awardees. So, Deputy Secretary Podman.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to ask you to ignore anything you heard from the Deputy Secretary. Secondly, the way you can tell I'm not Tom D'Agostino, please don't tell him I said this. I'm not going to say the next thing. Calvin Coolidge said, I never regretted anything I didn't say. But actually, I do come to this now. I came out of the national security side of the house. I have a deep passion for this. I had the opportunity, when I first joined, and Bill was right, it was 1989, to work for Admiral Watkins. And I think we all honor his memory. We lost him last week. But the mission that NNSA still bears responsibility for is still vitally important to the safety of the nation. President Obama in April 2009 articulated a vision. And my hunch is when the books get written about the Obama administration, the changes and the leadership that he showed in the area of nuclear security will be a bright chapter. And that's both in terms of articulating a vision of a world free of nuclear weapons, as well as assuring that so long as we continue to need nuclear weapons to defend American and allied interests, that we'll assure that our deterrent is safe, secure, and effective. And that we will continue to contribute to the non-proliferation agenda, securing all vulnerable nuclear materials in 4 years. And again, doing so through not only hard work, but also the great technology that has come up through the NNSA system, which technology informs every aspect of the NNSA mission, from the deterrent to non-proliferation to naval reactors. So on behalf of Tom D'Agostino, who is a great patriot and a great leader, congratulations. Okay.
Okay, so one of the new offices to win a PECASE award is the Office of Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability. So would you please join me in welcoming John Worthington, OE's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Permitting, Siting, and Analysis.
Thank you, Liz. As Liz mentioned, I'm John Worthington. I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Electricity Reliability and Electric Delivery. OE's mission is to lead the national efforts to modernize the electric grid, to enhance security and reliability of that infrastructure, and to facilitate recovery from disruptions of energy supply. In short, we keep the lights on in America. I am very pleased and honored this afternoon to present the Presidential Early Career Awards for Science and Engineers to Dr. Stan Atsedy. Dr. Atsedy leads the Power Electronics Sub-Program as part of OE's Energy Supply Program and is managed by Dr. Emery Gook, and has gained international recognition for its state-of-the-art research and development. Stan's semiconductor work allows for next-generation grid power electronic systems to be built up to 10 times smaller than current silicon-based technologies, and is expected to spur innovations in utility-scale power electronics hardware and increase accessibility to use of distributed energy resources. 4 of his research projects have won prestigious R&D 100 awards. Stan has a special place in his heart for the American Indian community, and giving back to that community will always be a high priority for him. He is a member of the Navajo Nation, a language he speaks fluently. In 2006, he was the first American Indian to receive a PhD in electrical and computer engineering from Virginia Tech University. He has made numerous presentations to students that focus on his experience as a successful American Indian professional. He has been an inspiration to many American Indian students to pursue technical degrees and strive for success in their own lives. In fact, in 2007, Stan received the American Indian Science and Engineering Society Technical Excellence Award for his Native American community involvement and technical achievement. He was also featured in the children's book entitled Energy Basics Energized, published by Sally Rand Science Books, giving him yet another opportunity to reach more students. Dr. Atsidi, I congratulate you for your achievements and well-deserved Presidential Early Career Award. And on behalf of the Department of Energy, thank you for your outstanding work and your commitment to helping the Native American society and the nation you involved in energy challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Assistant Secretary, and congratulations on your new PECASE winner. Another new winner is the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Stephen Chalk, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Renewable Energy in the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy.
Thank you, Liz. And please join me in congratulating Dr. Thomas F. Jaramillo, and he's an assistant professor of chemical engineering at Stanford University School of Engineering. So again, thanks to Dr. Brinkman for opening this up to the applied part of DOE, where we do the clean energy research and development. So Tom is the first ever EE recipient. Our fuel cell program nominated Tom, working a very important problem. As you know, fuel cells are an important part of our all of the above strategy that Deputy Secretary Poneman mentioned. And we've had great progress in lowering the cost of fuel cells by about 80% since 2002. And in fact, if you look at the clean energy space, fuel cells issued more patents last year than any other part of the clean energy sector. So we're making great progress on fuel cells. But we haven't made great progress on the hydrogen production aspect, making hydrogen fuel more efficient and more cost competitive. And that's the area that Tom's working. In fact, he's doing hydrogen production for renewables and low carbon sources, and it's really photoelectrochemical production of hydrogen, which is really using sunlight and that energy to split water to make hydrogen. So Tom has a world-class lab out at Stanford. He's focusing his research on materials and processes to accelerate energy-related chemical transformations with improved efficiency and durability. And one of his major thrusts, as we mentioned, is really producing fuels and chemicals from renewable resources. Through the engineering of materials at the nano and the atomic scale, Tom's revealed new insights into how materials work and also a means to control their properties. So in his efforts to structure molybdenum disulfide at the nanoscale, he's developed active, stable catalysts that can produce hydrogen from water with high efficiency and tailoring also their electronic band structure for direct solar photolysis. So from his graduate days at UC Santa Barbara to his postdoc fellowship at the prominent Danish Technical University in Copenhagen, and now his faculty position at Stanford, Tom's been an instrumental driving force in EERE fuel cell technologies program, especially directed towards his hydrogen production efforts. In addition, Tom was also commended for his dedication and outstanding work in mentoring. Tom's hard work, passion, and ingenuity demonstrate why the Presidential Early Career Award for Science and Engineering is an honor he well deserves. So on behalf of DOE and EERE, Tom, congratulations.
Thank you. Our friends from Fossil Energy also won a PECASE award for the first time. We are happy to have them with us today. Join me in thanking Dr. Anthony Cugini, the Director of the National Energy Technology Laboratory.
Thank you. We're pleased this year again, thank you, Dr. Brinkman, that the applied programs are part of the PECASE award. Office of Fossil Energy is proud to have their first recipient. Dr. John Kitchen is the first recipient of the PECASE award for fossil energy. Fossil energy's mission is hypercritical to this country. As we look forward to the future, if we're really serious about this carbon management program, carbon capture storage, a primary mission in the Office of Fossil Energy, needs to be part of the solution. It also needs to be part of the solution quickly. I think Deputy Secretary Poneman underscored the fact that these problems are not problems that we can just lazily look at. These are problems that we have to rapidly attack and rapidly go after. Part of the big issue of carbon capture and storage is carbon capture cost. Dr. Kitchen has been working actively in the program to really look at opportunities for reducing carbon capture costs. The difficulty is many of these technologies take a long time to develop and work their way into the program and work their way into deployment. Dr. Kitchen has found a way to link computational calculations, modeling, with carbon capture technologies to more rapidly develop the technologies and move them into the technology pipeline much sooner. That's going to be critical for our future. If we don't change the energy research paradigm, we're really going to find ourselves behind the 8 ball. So people like John, who are looking at ways of changing the energy research paradigm, I think are hypercritical to the future of this country. In addition, John was way ahead of the curve. If we look at carbon capture and storage today, we're making a big pitch over the last year to talk about adding utilization. Well, in my office about 3.5 years ago, John passionately talked about the need to do utilization. In other words, looking at conversion of CO2 into other products and look at ways of utilizing to drive research, drive the cost, and find ways of not only developing new technology, but innovating those technologies for a business case. I think that really is a sign of really what we're looking for in a PECASE leader, a PECASE awardee. Somebody who not only is at the forefront of research and development, but also kind of leading the department, leading the leaders in the department and showing them the pathway to look at how does one do research into the future. So I really congratulate John. I think you've done a great job and looking forward, as Dr. Poneman said, looking forward to what you do into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, the Office of Nuclear Energy is here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Dennis Miolta, the Office of Nuclear Energy's Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary.
Thank you. I'm here actually representing Pete Lyons. Dr. Lyons is off at a conference, and it relates very much to this award. We were surprised and greatly honored to have a representative from the Idaho National Lab win the PECASE award. Frankly, we were stunned. This is an incredibly important award, and we were hopeful, but not actually too optimistic. So we're very happy to be here. Nuclear energy, for those of you who don't know much about it, is kind of in terms of an R&D world, it's an emerging world. I started in this business almost 40 years ago, and up to recently, it's not changed much. I mean, the technology for research was cook and look. So everything was, in terms of materials and fuels, was pretty much stick it in a reactor for a long time and take it out and then chop it up and see what it looked like. And so we are now, of late, moving into the area of modeling and simulation as quickly as we possibly can. And this award for Mr. Derek Aston from the Idaho National Lab is really very relevant to the direction of the program and our office, which is for the development of a multi-physics simulation framework that enables the rapid creation of fast engineering simulation tools. This is really where we're headed and what we need most in nuclear energy. We don't have the luxury anymore of taking 10 years to come up with an experimental result on a new fuel or a damaged piece of fuel. So we really are looking at modeling and simulation as a way to accelerate the R&D program. And Mr. Gaston has led an effort on the development of a simulation tool called Moose, which is well known now in the industry, amazingly well known given that it's not been around that long. And I recently had the pleasure of looking at some of the simulations generated by this program. And it's the kind of information that it would take years of experiment and millions of dollars to produce. And it was done in a relatively short amount of time without running reactors and hot cells, which are, by the way, very expensive and difficult to keep running. So thank you for the award, and thank you, Mr. Gaston, for bringing us here today. We wish you all the best in the future, as we do all of the awardees, and thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, we've now come to the highlight of our program, honoring our 13 Department of Energy's Presidential Early Career Awardees. The citation will be read by Dr. Linda Blevins, the Senior Technical Advisor within the Office of Science. So I'd like you to join me in welcoming Linda to the podium. Linda?
Deputy Secretary Poneman and Director Brinkman, thank you. As Liz said, I'm with the Office of Science, and I'm the coordinating program manager for PECASE. So the 13 people in the front here have received a lot of email from me over the last few weeks. And I thank you for being so responsive, because oftentimes it was sort of like, I need this yesterday. But it's really been a lot of fun. I want to congratulate everyone, and before we get to the awards, I did want to say a couple of words about the nominating process. As has already been mentioned, in the past this has been Office of Science and NNSA. This year we did something different. We involved the technology programs. We're so glad we did. We weren't sure exactly how it was going to work out, but there are a couple of my colleagues, Colin McCormick from the Undersecretary's office and Keith LeShen from NNSA, and I got together and hatched a plan. And we were able to come up with a great slate of candidates, I think. Selection for this award across the government is based on 2 review criteria established by the White House. The first one is innovative research at the frontiers of science and technology that's relevant to the mission of the agency. And the second criterion is community service demonstrated through scientific leadership, education, or community outreach. Candidates were identified in different ways in the different areas of the Department of Energy. Within the Office of Science, our nominees were selected from the winners of the 2011 Early Career Research Program, which is a prestigious grant program that we started about 3 years ago. Within NNSA, the nominees were selected from a group of candidates that were recommended to NNSA by its 3 national laboratory directors. And in the energy technology programs, the nominees were selected from outstanding current grantees and awardees that were recommended by their disciplinary program managers. But within each of these candidate groups, we used competitive processes to down select. We either used external peer review or internal merit review, but it was competitive. In other words, it was not easy to get here. It was a process. The result is a group of promising individuals that are already leading their fields. And a striking fact to me is that we have so many people in this group who work across the DOE programmatic boundaries. For example, completely independently, the Office of Science and the technology programs each nominated candidates that work at NNSA national laboratories. Additionally, At least one of the nominees from an NSA and at least two of the nominees from the technology programs are also principal investigators in the Office of Science programs. So at headquarters, we talk a lot about cross-program integration, and we work very hard on that. It's something we value very much, but you all really are embodying that. You're integrating the basic research and the technology applications in the field. And so we really care a lot about it, and we're very glad to see it happening. So I'm delighted that these folks are being recognized today for their excellence in science and service, and I'm very grateful that the representatives of their respective program offices, as well as many program managers from across the department, have joined us in this celebration. And I'll be introducing the representatives again as they come forward to honor their respective awardees. So to begin the presentation, I'd like to invite each awardee to come up to receive your plaque as I read your citation. The first PECASE recipients are from the NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration. I'd like to ask the Deputy Secretary to join us for this presentation. Yes.
Now we go to logistics. So you know those name tags that make you look like you came from Iowa? Take them off, because somebody's going to take your picture, okay? We won't have you frog marched out.
The first NNSA recipient is Dr. Jeffrey Banks, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. For work in computational physics, scientific computation, and numerical analysis, especially pioneering contributions in numerical approximations to hyperbolic partial differential equations, focusing on the development and analysis of nonlinear and high-resolution finite volume and finite difference methods, and for service in high schools and the scientific community. Dr. Amy Clark, Los Alamos National Laboratory, for research on uranium-niobium alloy deformation mechanisms using micropillar compression testing to determine the influence of orientation on stress-strain response, for using in situ solidification and proton radiography with potential to finally resolve liquid-solid processing questions relevant to nuclear weapons, and for mentoring future ferrous metallurgists. Dr. Heather Whitley, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, for using path integral Monte Carlo techniques to produce very accurate quantum statistical potentials for use in molecular dynamic codes, for applying these methods to first principles understanding of thermal conductivity in ignition capsules for the National Ignition Facility, and for service to the Laboratory Postdoctoral Association. Our next PECASE recipient comes from the Office of Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability, or OE, and I'd like to thank Mr. John Worthington, OE's Deputy Assistant Secretary, for permitting, citing, and analysis for joining us to present the award. Dr. Stanley Atcity, Sandia National Laboratories, for advances in power electronics for the electric grid, including the development of a high-temperature silicon carbide power module and an ultra-high voltage silicon carbide thyristor, for research on grid integration of energy storage, and for mentorship in the Native American community. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Stephen Chalk, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Renewable Energy in the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, to come forward to assist in presenting our next PECASE award. Dr. Thomas Jaramillo, Stanford University, for innovations in solar hydrogen production, including using quantum confinement in molybdenum disulfide nanoparticles to enhance catalytic reactivity, for incorporating these catalysts into high surface area scaffolds, and for excellence in mentoring at the university level. Our next PECASE winner comes from the Office of Fossil Energy, and I'd like to thank Dr. Anthony Cagini, Director of the National Energy Technology Laboratory, for being with us to present it. Dr. John Kitchen, Carnegie Mellon University, for advances in electrochemical separations for carbon capture, including the demonstration of alkaline ion exchange membranes for oxygen separation, for fundamental advances in computational simulation of metal catalyst reactivity, and for excellence in teaching, student mentoring, and introduction of computing into the engineering curriculum. Mr. Dennis Mayotla, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy, has joined us to present the PECASE Award from his office. Mr. Derek Gaston, Idaho National Laboratory, for the development of a multi-physics simulation framework that enables the rapid creation of fast engineering simulation tools, for the application of this framework to the understanding of accident-tolerant and novel nuclear fuels, and for service to the scientific community. We've now come to the PECASE winners from our last program office, the Office of Science. Thanks again, Dr. Brinkman, for being here today for these presentations. Dr. Christopher Harada, California Institute of Technology, for innovative work reducing astrophysical uncertainties that limit the extraction of fundamental physics parameters from cosmological observations, for studies of the sensitivity of structure formation to the relative velocity between dark matter and baryons in the early universe, and for service on the NASA-DOE Joint Dark Energy Mission Working Groups. Dr. Hailin Shi Kim, Duke University, for leading nanogeochemistry research to understand toxin subsurface transport, establishing a new geochemical framework for predicting mercury methylation potential in contaminated sediments, and for leadership in publishing in collaboration with synchrotron scientists in the United States and Europe. Dr. Pablo Herrero Herrero, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for pioneering research on quantum transport phenomena in graphene and topological insulators, which has expanded understanding of the fundamental electronic structure and laid a foundation for future energy applications, and for outreach to the public through the popular press. Dr. Peter Mueller, Argonne National Laboratory, for scientific leadership in developing precision laser spectroscopy and atom trapping techniques, resulting in groundbreaking insights on the charge radii of exotic light nuclei and the fundamental nature of the weak interaction via precise measurement of nuclear beta decay. Dr. Daniel Sinars, Sandia National Laboratories, for developing innovative techniques to study the properties of instabilities in magnetized high-energy density plasma, enabling quantifiable comparison between experiment and simulation needed for validating cutting-edge radiation hydrodynamics codes, and for demonstrating substantial leadership qualities in high-energy density laboratory plasma physics. Dr. Jesse Thaler, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for innovative work exploring possible new physics beyond the standard model, for development of improved techniques for distinguishing events at the Large Hadron Collider involving new physics from those due to known interactions, and for developing tools that have helped train aspiring particle phenomenologists confronting the challenges of collider data. Now,
Thank you, Linda. I'd like to ask, this concludes our award ceremony. I'd like to ask Dr. Brinkman to make any closing remarks, or Deputy Secretary Poneman.
I think we should get a.
Oh, no,
shot.
we're going to do that. We're just wanted to, yes,
okay.
don't worry.
Stage manager.
Go ahead here. Well, thank you very much, and appreciate all of you folks attending here today, and congratulations again to all the awardees. I think it's a terrific group of people. And we are about to close the ceremony, and in doing so, we would like to ask all the recipients to come back up here, and we'll have a joint final shot, and the rest of you are invited to a reception in room 1E 245. Which I hope you can find, which is always a challenge. But in any case, we'll have a few pictures, and then we'll all join you over there. And thank you all for coming, and congratulations again to all the awardees.